guys that I think don't really have quite as solid of a record or resume as me, some guys that maybe have taken the easier path, uh, go and, get an opportunity that I really, really feel I deserve, is a little frustrating.
Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now. Let's kick it off with this fight coming up July 14th. Major fight, man. Cage Fury featherweight title. When you look at this opportunity and you look at the state of your career at this point, what does this opportunity mean?
I'd say that as far as like moving ahead goes, the only thing that I could do to genuinely move up or progress or to promote, like go beyond where I'm at, is to be in the UFC, because right now I feel like I'm at the top of the hill for CFFC, and rightfully so that I'm champion. So I'll say that some of the pressure's off on this one in the sense of expectations are on my side. I'd say all the other fights that I had, I was supposed to be kind of the B-side roller, the guy that, some people would predict to lose. I'd say Frank Wells was a little more even, but this one I'd for sure say that the major consensus is that I'm going to be the winner. So I don't feel pressure in that sense, but I know that winning isn't enough in this one, that I'm really supposed to put a stamp on it and do what I haven't done before. Obviously, we've kind of been regurgitating like, oh, this is the fight, Jose. This is the one that's going to push you over the edge and get you in the UFC. Didn't happen. Oh, no. Now this one's the fight that's going to push you over the edge and get you in the UFC. And I think I just got to do something that I haven't done. I've been making wars out of fights that didn't necessarily need to be wars, and kind of meeting people at what they're best at, like kickboxing guys like Frank Wells, and then wrestling a lot with like a guy like Capaldo, or, guys that on paper should beat me in those facets. I didn't just aim to beat them. I aimed to beat them where they were best and really like dominantly win, not just use my jiu-jitsu to get that victory and edge something out.
But it's good to go in there and test your skills, so to say, on those aspects, because it's better, on the regional scene rather than go to the major promotion and then get stuck on the bottom for 15 minutes or something, you know what I mean? That's not in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, be put in a situation where I'm forced to use those things. Like I basically, had I just fought tomato cans and submitted everybody in the first round or the first 3 minutes, kind of how the beginning of my career went, by now I would have some growing pains when I got into the UFC, because I would be eventually put into a situation where I was forced to use those weapons, to use my hands or something that I hadn't done up until that point. But since I took it upon myself, like you said, to do it on the regional scene, to do it against guys to where like, whenever I was in a hairy situation with Capaldo or Wells, I knew that I was going to bail and go to my comfort. But it was good to do it in a situation where I wasn't like obligated. Like you're forced to use your hands. You have no other choice,
You're facing Chris Vasil. What are your thoughts on him in the matchup?
Nothing negative, honestly. I'd say he hasn't been getting his shine. That's kind of what I've been repeating to everybody. He hasn't really been getting as much shine as he should, because he's been fighting guys that were a little bit more popular in the circuit that we're fighting in. More well-known names, training at bigger gyms. So he hasn't really been getting his shine. But every time that he goes out, I'm a sucker for the underdog. So I've always actually been like a Chris Vasil fan and been like cheering for him. In my household, we were Chris Vasil fans. One thing we need to know is, you might not know it, but he has these weird like tally mark tattoos on his back. I don't know if it's like wins and losses, but we did the math on that and that doesn't add up. But no, we need to figure out what that is. But regardless, Chris Vasil is a solid fighter. He's a good fighter, and my repeating statement has been, great fighters beat good fighters, and I'm right now starting to kind of figure out where I fit in the food chain, and I believe that I'm a great fighter and that I can beat guys, without flaws.
You guys have a couple common opponents, and in particular, Frank Wells. What did you think of how Vasil's performance? What did you think of his performance against Wells compared to yours?
I think that he had a little bit more. Again, I don't have to take anything away from my opponents to know that I'm better. But Wells is good. He's good, particularly at the kickboxing, which should be obvious for anyone who actually knows him. Um, I tried to match him in the kickboxing. You know, like I said, it's not something I had to do, but it's something that I was just compelled to do because that's just who I am and at nature. Um, Vassal matched him too. I think he dealt with a little bit more of an issue with the range just because of a height difference. But I think Vassal did well in the stand up. I would say that Wells was beating him majority of the fight, and that knee was the only knee he threw in the fight. So I mean, I think that that was like not to say luck, but it's just not something that I could see him repeating. You know, it was the only knee he threw in the fight. It was the first knee he threw in the fight. It's the only one he ended up needing to throw in the fight. Um, it's just kind of one of those things where he went into it, he got his knockout, and I'm sure now he's on a real career high. You know, guys get that when they get a knockout, they think that they have the death touch or something. Um, Kind of go into the next fight a little overconfident, and I think that mixture of that as well as like my title, I think those things kind of enticed Chris Vasil to take a fight that he normally wouldn't take, and I think that just in regards to what I've seen in his fights versus similar opponents that I fought and what I've done, I just feel that that he bit off more than he could chew with this one.
Your last fight against Wells, you captured the title. How was that experience getting that belt finally wrapped around your waist?
I'd say the second we kind of were going through COVID when I was starting my pro career, so like it was kind of a scramble. Like my pro career didn't start when it was supposed to, and we just kind of kept like we're gonna do this show, and then it would get canceled. This show we're gonna get canceled. And then when I seen CFFC, I was kind of like thinking I wasn't really gonna fight in it. I figured it was gonna fall through, and then 3 weeks before, my coach reminded me like, hey, that's still going through. So I watched on UFC Fight Pass and I seen the bright lights and all that stuff, and I kind of knew once I got there that like I want to stick around here. This place is pretty cool. I watched Pat Sabatini fight, who was getting the title like the night that I started my pro career, and I knew that that was like not end goal, because end goal is obviously going to be the UFC, PFL, those major organizations. Um, but that's definitely like a big milestone that I had like pictured in my mind beforehand. I knew that that's something I wanted to do along the way, just because I kind of rushed through my amateur career, so I wasn't like one of those guys that had 15 fights as an amateur and had like 7 titles. I've just been doing this since I was a kid, and everyone's always called me a champion. That's just naturally what they called me, even before I had anything. So I just knew it was something I had to do. It was something that was like destined for me to do, to finally become like a champion to some degree. Just a mile marker along the way, but something important to me nonetheless, something I had to do.
You mentioned turning pro in 2020 during the pandemic. When you look back at that time, how wild was that? You know what I mean? Just going through that as a fighter.
Man. So if you don't know my story, I had did my amateur career, and then I had some kids, and I had taken there was a 3-year gap. It was about 2.5 when I tried to get back into it, but like we said, COVID kind of put a stamp on that. Um, so I'd taken that little break, and I was like I missed it. I could tell that I really, really missed it. And then I had gotten back into it, and then I was ready. I had trained for like a year and a half before I was ready to go pro again, or to start fighting again, which I was going to turn pro. And then COVID happened, and the fights just kept getting canceled, kept getting canceled, kept getting canceled. I'm telling you, I got like depressed. I'm like, this is like a punishment. I took this time off, stepped away, and I took it for granted when I had it. And then when I finally got back and was ready to like, get back on the saddle and actually get a fight, it was like, nope, it was being pulled away from me. And I was just thinking, I'm like, dude, like basically if you weren't in the UFC, I was thinking like, that's it. Like if you weren't in the UFC or don't know somebody that can get you in the UFC, you'll never be able to fight to even earn your opportunity. Like my dream's gone. It was crazy. I was depressed for a minute, super worried about like MMA as a whole.
Well, man, you won back-to-back fights that year, and then 2021 you had a big year as well, 4-1. What were some of the learning lessons from 2021 for you?
So I think 2021 was, I had finished everybody like in my amateur career really easily with jiu-jitsu. Getting opponents like in my local area was tough. So a lot of the guys that filled in were not the greatest, and it was just kind of who we could get. So turning pro, I didn't really have that problem, but no one saw me coming, and no one, you're saying you're good is one thing, but actually showing it and being able to finish guys is a whole nother. And jiu-jitsu started working and doing what it was going to do, and I was out grappling people and getting the finish pretty easy, like early on in the fights. And I'd say 2021 was when I finally realized like how important pacing is, and the general idea of experience. Like, that's something I preach like big time. Um, every single fight, I said it after the Capaldo fight. Every fight like changes me. I go in one fight or I come out another, and that's like in a sense of experience, like confidence in myself, and really like if I had to like epitomize what it is, it's learning to like I know that I can count on myself because now I've been in those funky situations where my back was against the wall, or where I was exhausted, or I was cut open, or anything, or maybe behind in the scorecards, or I knew I needed to finish. Like I've been in those situations now, and that was all in 2021, 2022, kind of as a whole, because that was just one run. Um, I just learned to count on myself. I know that I can depend on myself, when the going gets tough.
The DeAndre Anderson fight, how did that, result impact you?
I'd say going into it, I had like a different idea of what I was doing. Like I kind of underestimated how dangerous things were. I don't know. I knew it was a game of chaos. I knew it was a game of chance. Like anyone who watches fighting knows that like if two fighters were to fight 10 times, the better fighter isn't necessarily going to win 10 out of 10 times. Being the better fighter just means you might win 6 out of the 10 times, or 7 out of the 10 times, but you never know what fate might have. You might win 9 out of 10 times, but fate would draw that one where you get sat down. Um, it's, I learned to not be so nice. Number one, I've been saying it to myself is sometimes you got to get put to sleep to wake up, and that fight woke me up in a big way. Um, that fight just kind of showed me how aggressive I need to be. And on the flip side, it is a game of chance, and to be able to accept what you can't control, So I mean, there's an element, like I said, of chance. I can't control that, but I can't like obsess over that, or like I can't control it. So all I can try to do is train hard, and all that's going to do is increase the probability that the fight shakes out my way. And then when I go out there and the lights are on me, just accept that something's going to happen. I'm going to have a result. And I think that's really freed me in the cage, And my past few fights, East at Alapaz, I was a little worried, but Capaldo and Wells was really a result of the DeAndre Anderson fight. And that was the most fun I've ever had. I've never had that much fun, like doing any sport. Sparring isn't that fun. And normally I'm obsessive and super like nervous in the cage, but those last two fights, I was just having a ball, dude, just doing my thing.
It's not normal to say that, you know what I mean, that you have fun in a fight, because most people are completely terrified if they got into a situation like that, right?
It's normal society. Like what I always say is I approach fights, and the reason I say it's martial arts is it's self-expression. To say that you don't have jealousy, envy, anger, aggression to some degree, you would be lying. We all have it in us. It's a part of what kind of made humans humans, and now we live in society and we like to pretend like those things aren't a part of us anymore. They're the undesirable traits, but nonetheless, they're a part of you. Um, Under most circumstances, those things and the way I would behave is ugly, disgusting, unacceptable in public. But under this one weird demographic, under these certain lights, those aren't just accepted, they're celebrated. So I can be defiant, I can be a shit talker, I can be arrogant, and I can be aggressive and do all those things that we all kind of want to do, but we do them in our head. And that's just a moment of freedom for me to just really go out and do, the uglier parts of me, and get them out. And then I can go back to life and be beautiful again,
Earlier in the interview, you mentioned that, people would say like this fight would be the fight that gets you over the hump. This fight would be the fight that gets you over the hump. And in the last fight, you won the title. Everybody says you win a CFFC title, you're going to get the call up. You didn't get the call up. Did you learn a lot of patience throughout the last couple of fights because of this?
Oh man, I wish I learned patience. I'd like to sound like a guru and like I'm learning everything. And I know I'm aware that I should be patient. And you know how I just said the whole thing about accepting within the fight those things that I cannot control. Well, I learned that in the fight. I'm waiting for that to transfer over to life for me, and that just hasn't happened yet. I haven't. I've been super bitter. I've been super jealous and like angry because like a lot of guys that I've had the opportunities to fight are guys that have like actively avoided that challenge with me. You know, guys that I think don't really have quite as solid of a record or resume as me. You know, some guys that maybe have taken the easier path. Uh, Go and get an opportunity that I really really feel I deserve is a little frustrating, and I'm not dealing with it as nicely as I would like to. And I'm sure looking back on this and this interview in particular, when I'm older, I'll be like, Jose, you sounded stupid, and I'm aware that I shouldn't be jealous and envious. But no, man, I'm a little frustrated. I like don't really know what I need to do to get over this hump and get to the next level. I mean, uh, if my math isn't math, and I was like, Capaldo was at the UFC PI like the same week that he knocked out Chris Vasil. You know, props to him. But then by a stroke of unluck on his side and a stroke of luck on my side, we ended up getting matched up because of misfortune on his end. And I figured that was a clear cut opportunity for me to show that I was at that level. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that I aced that test and kind of answered a lot of questions that I hadn't up to until that point. And I thought that might have been enough. And then the title I figured was going to be the icing on the cake for them. And that wasn't enough. And I'm just like, man, dude, I really don't know what they want. But now I guess another finish, maybe do it a little more decisively. I don't know, man. We'll figure it out.
I appreciate the honesty, man. And, those emotions can carry you a long ways, keeping that in you. And, sometimes patience is not something that you need. With all
No.
of that, man, what are you expecting? Like, what type of performance are you expecting in this championship fight? It's a major fight.
They say that champions get 30% better, after just becoming champion. And that's just like kind of a placebo effect. And I don't really, I've never experienced that. And then I don't know if I respect the hell out of CFFC as a promotion and the belt and all that and what it means to me. But I don't like look at that as like an impact on me. I've always felt like I was the best guy on the roster, even before I had the title. Um, so but I will say that I feel oddly comfortable in this fight. I'm not so fixated or obsessive right now. I feel really free. I feel really comfortable. I don't get quite as nervous when I always mentally put myself in that moment and try to like picture myself looking across at the individual that I'm going to fight. Like visualize, I try to visualize beforehand because then it just takes the brunt off of it when it's actually happening. That's just how I register things. So normally when I do that and I visualize myself across, I get this like goosebumps or chills and I don't have it this fight and I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. We're definitely going to find out, but something's different and I've got an eerie feeling that this is just going to be the one where I really just put everything together and where I'm as cerebral as I am in the gym. I'm not someone who's super, super physically gifted. Like I'm not a genetic freak. I really know my shit. I'm a really good fighter. I really know what I'm doing. And, I really think that this could be the one where I start to like think clearly, get through that whole fog of all the nerves and everything like that that's involved with fighting and be able to see what I want to do and execute.
July 14th, CFFC 121 main event featherweight title. Jose, thank you so much, man, for the time and all the best in this fight coming up and all the best on the rest of the year, man. Hopefully by the end of it, we'll see you in a major promotion.
Yeah, no doubt. Making noise, dude. Making waves already. That's the plan.